All right, so now we're going to look at the government of early Rome. So we have two slides on the government. You can keep them separate, or you can keep them together, whatever you want, but just make sure that you have two questions, one question for each slide. Whether or not you draw a line in between each of these or whatever you want to do, that's okay. Just make sure you have two questions. We don't have a lot of notes for this slide anyway, for these Cornell notes, so two questions. So as for the government, the early Romans were divided into two classes. The patricians, these were the wealthy landowners that made up the ruling class, and the plebeians. These were the artists. Artisans are people that make things. They're going to be people that are making clothes, maybe they're making pottery, and stuff like that. Shopkeepers, people that sell things, and owners of small farms. So these are people that have some money. Both classes were citizens and had the right to vote. So you had to either be wealthy or in the middle class. People that were poor were not allowed. Rome had a three-part government. This looks very similar to ours. Group number 1 ran the government. It's like the president of the United States. Okay, that's who runs the government. Number 2 makes the laws. It's like our Congress. We have a whole bunch of people that we elect that go and make the laws. Number 3, they had a group that act as judges, and we have that. We have our court system with judges all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so their government is very, very similar to ours today. And this is thousands of years old. So it's very interesting that we can learn and copy things from the past. And that's one of the benefits of being able to look at the past, is being able to learn from it. All right, so we'll go on to the next slide. So the top government officials were called consuls. There were 2 consuls, and they were elected every year. They headed the government and ran the army. Now this is a pretty good idea, because then one person doesn't get too much power. You're getting elected every single year, where our president is elected every 4 years. These guys were elected every year. So they had to be held accountable for what they were doing. And if they weren't doing stuff that was right, then they wouldn't be reelected. And these guys headed the government and they ran the army. So they had pretty important roles. The consuls could veto or reject the others' ideas. Again, very similar to our country and how it's run. We can veto things. Not we can, but the president can, or the governor can. Other important officials were praetors. Their job was to interpret laws and act as judges. Okay, so, pretty basic. So they said, a person's doing this, that means they're breaking the law, they're acting as judges. So when people do things are wrong, then they're going to be held accountable for that. All right, so that's the end of this slide, the end of the section. Remember, you need to write 2 questions for the government. 2 questions. Make sure you do your highlighting and 2 questions, and then move on to the next section.